Hey everyone, Josh here. So a few months ago I did a video with a CRUA and took it apart to show what happens when you don't change the timing belt on time. So today we're doing a timing belt on the CVCA. So they're very similar engines, both 2015 only in the EA288 engine family. So there's some differences compared to the 09 to 14 common rails. So we're going to go over the different tools we need, different timing belt components, and obviously changing it. So let's get started. Okay, so let's go over tools. So of course the 1 year only engine needs 1 year only timing tools. You can get the kit from Metal Nerd or Diesel Geek as well. This is just a cheaper Amazon kit, although I'm not a huge fan of precision stuff off of Amazon from unknown origins, but we'll go over what we need here. So this is the counter hold for the camshaft and the pump to loosen off the nut in the center. This will be our crank lock, and these will be the two locks for the cam and the high pressure fuel pump. Alternatively, if you've got the purple Metal Nerd kit that works on all of the PD and common rails, this is supposed to work as well for the crank lock on these ones. So I trust this a lot more than I trust this. And then the L pins, they're just a straight shaft versus this, so it doesn't really matter which way you do. The main thing you're going to need is this counter hold tool to crack the nuts or bolts loose. So Metal Nerd has a nicer kit you can get as well, but it costs a little bit more money and it takes a bit more time to get here to Canada. So that's why I went this route. So really, that's all I need. The rest of the stuff I'll put somewhere else. And then as far as the actual timing kit, so I ordered an INA kit, but everything is here loose. So we've got a Continental serpentine belt. This is an actual Volkswagen Continental timing belt. Your water pump. So originally it's going to be a variable displacement pump. It's going to have a little sheath here that comes up and over and covers it so it warms up quicker. The issue is sometimes those sheaths get stuck over and then engine overheats. So we're going to just a traditional constant flow. The variable actuator will go into that hole there and just gets bolted down, even though it's not going to do anything. Bunch of hardware kits. We've got an INA roller, another INA roller, the bigger one, and then we've got a OEM Volkswagen tensioner here, which is made by Litton, so that's what's usually in any of the normal kits, so it's all good stuff. Let's get started. Okay, so up top here, we're gonna get some fuel lines out of the way, so you can probably just flop the fuel filter over here and get it out of your way, but I prefer just to get it out of here, get all the snake's nest out of here. I'll probably take the return and the pressure and just flop it back over there, and then these two will go to the pump and the rail. I don't know, undo them there, undo them here, whatever, and get this whole canister out of here, get the lines out of the way. Then the coolant ball, same kind of thing. You can just, you got the bigger line down here, the smaller line here, the big line feeds into the bottom. I'll probably keep it all together, just unbolt it, flop it over out of the way. A few other things, so a little bit different on these ones. We got the def injector up here. We got two semi-hard lines that I assume are coolant. So I'll probably, whether we undo them there or undo them over here, get them out of the way. And one really important piece we need to worry about or think about is these two hard lines here. They go to a sensor inside of here. So that'll be, I think it's a DPF pressure sensor. So do that here. So we've got a hard line, we've got a short little rubber line, and then it goes to the actual sensor itself. I've seen multiple posts where these melt after the fact, after doing timing belt, because you get too aggressive and you end up bending these lines and it breaks the plastic, and hot exhaust gets blown on here and bakes it like a potato inside of here. So I'm gonna be really careful not to crack this because I don't want to buy a sensor. So we've got two in here, I think. I'm not sure how I want to go about this yet, but we'll get some fuel lines and kind of have a bit better of idea of which way we want to go. Okay, so we can see a little bit easier what we're trying to do here now. So we got the fuel filter housing, just made sense, set it over there. These fuel lines, I zip tied it up. We got a def line tucked in behind. It just uses like a little pinch feeling to get it off of the actual def injector. Coolant balls over there. I'm about to drop the coolant out of the lower rad connection. So then the differential sensor, so there's two here. So I just undid the bolt here so that they're loose and floppy. So if this gets stressed at all, they should be able to move and not crack, because yeah, they're kind of in the way here. And then the last one's going to be these coolant lines for the def injector. So you could take the def injector off using that inverted Torx clamp there. Issue is I don't have a seal for the def injector, so I don't really want to take it off. So I'm just going to take these two coolant lines off and then flop them up and over out of the way here. There's a bolt, I think, right here that kind of holds them. So once that's flopped out of the way, well, obviously you got to do that one and this one for the hard lines. We can kind of flex it a little bit and get the cover out of here and then see what we're actually replacing. Okay, so we got the cover off here now. We've got it set pretty close to top dead center. So there's a little timing fork there. It's got to be lined up. The crank and the pump will rotate twice for every one of the cams. So you need to make sure the cam's actually top dead center where it needs to be. So that screw, the Torx screw is kind of back there like the 7 o'clock-ish, but I'll go over thoroughly on how to set the time here yet. But yeah, that's roughly where it needs to be. So the plan now is, for whatever reason, Volkswagen decided to kind of go backwards from what they used to have. You used to be able to get the timing belt out without taking the engine mount off, but now it's wrapped around it. So just like the old ones, engine mount and the engine mount has to come off. So we gotta get a jack underneath there. We gotta take all that apart, and assuming you've got a decent timing belt kit, it should come all with all that one-time used hardware. So a bit more of a pain than 09 to 14s, but it is what it is. So get that out of the way, and then we can really see in here nicely where everything needs to be set before we get the belt off. Okay, so we just got a jack on a piece of wood off the oil pan. There's a plastic protectant on there. It's already been smashed from hitting something and obviously just smashing the plastic. So if yours is in pristine condition, you don't want to break it anymore, I'd maybe pop it off. There's little push pins in the corner, but it seemed it flexed pretty good and went up into the pan, so I wouldn't be too concerned about it. A little sketchy is what it is. So up top here, we've got the mount out of here. 2 18 mils, 2 16 mils, mount comes up. Same thing, 2 13 mils there. So now as far as getting this mount unbolted, I'm gonna lift the engine up a little bit higher to get this one here. And then we've got two really close together at the back. And if we look in here, that'll be the top one, and the bottom one's farther down. So I think I could probably catch the top one right now. And then when I lift the engine up a little bit to get that front one, I should be able to hit that second one underneath there as well at the same times. Okay, so I think this mount here is gonna come out a lot easier if I have the plastic surround out of here. So I'll get the dampener off and get that support out. So for 10 mil triple square, I think. The issue is, as always, they're seized on there. So a couple taps and kind of work it free. You don't want to pry off that cover because it's going to bend. You can maybe pry off the pan a little bit, but just be careful. And then yeah, all the bolts, get that lower timing belt cover out of there, and then we'll see if we can get that mount out a bit easier. So that comes out nice and easy. We've got 4 bolts. And then just that bottom locking tab that holds onto the front main there. So now we got a lot more wiggle room for this mount, so it shouldn't be too bad to come out. I gotta take a look at it here yet. Okay, so as far as getting this mount out, I've got it up here higher, and then I've kind of rotated the top outwards. So now the plan is, if we can just kind of keep rotating it like that, and up it comes. So it's a lot easier than the older Mark IVs. So nice and easy. So now we're gonna get this everything all locked into where it needs to be and start taking stuff apart. Okay, so if you're just gonna use the Amazon Special Kit, it's got a little cutout for the divot right there. So it basically slides into the bolt holes, and then the front main cover has that little hole there. You basically slide your pin through, lock it in place. I'm going to use this kit, so basically the same thing, except you're actually bolting it on there, and then slip that on. Not really rocket science, so I'll get that set and we'll talk about the top end here. Okay, so nice and easy. The pump got that little tab, little hole in the head, or the aluminum block, I guess. Just pin it like that. The cam, we got that torque screw, that little fork, and then you got a hole in the head there. So same thing, put that tool in there. So then the next thing you're gonna have to do, so same as all the other TDIs, when you go to tension the belt, you need to have that sprocket and that sprocket able to move independently of these timing lock pins. So that's gonna be where this, that 3-pronged counter hold comes into play. So what we'll have to do, I'm gonna loosen the tension off so we got a bit of slack in the belt, so I really don't wanna break this front cover. Like say if this rotates a bit, I don't want to put extra stress on that plastic. But so this would sit like so. You put a bar on there and then you'll loosen this nut on the inside, and then the sprocket should turn independently from the actual hub that's pinned. And same thing back here, but the issue with this is we've only got that amount of the window to play with, so we need to be somewhat centered. So not too worried about that right now. We'll get the belt out of here first, and then we'll get that cracked loose. Okay, so we're getting closer. So I ended up taking these pipes off because to get the timing belt around here was really tight. So I just took them off and set them over there. So before I take the water pump off and end up with a lake underneath me here, we're gonna get these 2 pulleys loose. So I've got this one loosened off already, but as you can see, it still doesn't rotate, so you have to loosen off the center nut. One thing you'll notice, the Diesel Geek kit or the Metal Nerd kit has a cutout on here, so that when you set this on here to hold it, it'll actually sit flush, and you can keep that Allen or that screw in there. So some precision die grinding, and that's gonna work nice. So gonna counter hold it, so lefty loosey righty tighty. So you wanna make sure we're pushing down on that while we're turning, loosening it, and same thing at the front here. That way we don't break the locking tabs, where it goes into the head or the mount there, just common sense. So I'll get these cracked loose and make sure they rotate. Okay, so everything's cracked loose here, which I snugged that up now, but you can turn that. So I'm gonna set it just to a little bit more room there, so when we tension the timing belt, it's gonna rotate this way because the tensioner's at the back, so all the slack's gonna get taken up there. Same thing with this one. It only has so much rotation, so just kind of set it in the center-ish and just kind of keep them somewhat snug. So up next, we're gonna get this water pump out of here. Okay, so rather than messing around with this plug, trying to get it up and out of there, I just undid the solenoid down in there, so just that one little torque spit. So now we got 3 triple squares that hold the water pump in. You can look at your new one and just kind of use some common sense. 1, 2, 3. And then we'll pry it out. So then you're gonna end up with coolant everywhere. So a nice big catch pan underneath should catch most of it. And once that's out of there, we'll get these studs out because the kit comes with new ones. We'll replace those, and then we should be pretty well ready for reassembly. Okay, so everything's apart now. So everything was original. There's the plastic impeller, and then this is the sheath that goes over it to help warm stuff up, because if the water pump isn't pumping, then coolant will warm up quicker. So sometimes that gets stuck covering it partially, and you might have an issue with overheating in the summertime. But yeah, one thing that's different on these ones, so instead of sealing inside of the hole, it's on the face of the hole. So we'll clean that up. It's a little bit rusty there. The traditional water pumps, a couple here ready to go for scrap. Traditional ones sealed inside like that, whereas the new one has the seal on the very face. So make sure you're cleaning that up real good. Got all our hardware we're gonna replace here now. And then we'll get some pressure washer in a can and kind of clean up some of the spilt coolant, a little bit of oil spray and just debris. Get that nice and clean, and then we're going to reassemble everything. Okay, so as far as torque specs on reassembly, I found one person had posted most of them. So I used that and a little bit of the ID parts, the CJAA and CBEA torque specs. So cam, 100 Newton meters, which would be 74 foot-pounds. The tensioner, stud, and nut. So put the stud in by hand, finger tight, and then put the nut on, 20 Newton meters plus 45 degrees. So 20 Newton meters is 15 foot-pounds. Upper idler, lower idler are both just straight 15 foot-pounds. Water pump is 20 Newton meters plus 45, so 15 foot-pounds plus 45. The engine bracket, so that's the one with the 3 bolts that go in sideways to the engine. So they had 7 Newton meters, then 40 Newton meters, and then 180. So the 40 Newton meters would be 30 foot-pounds plus 180. The CJAA poster says bracket to engine block 33 foot-pounds plus 180. So in that ballpark. The engine bracket to engine mount, so that would be the bigger, the 18 mil head bolts go straight down into that aluminum. So 60 Newton meters plus 90, which would be 44 foot-pounds plus 90 degrees. Which rung true on this one as well. And then mount to body, I didn't see anybody post that, but I'm going to assume they look pretty similar as far as hardware. So I'm just using the CJAA spec here of and bracket to mount to body, which was 30 foot-pounds plus 90. So you can look up your own specs if you want to, but that's what I'm going off of here. So we'll start going together. So technically that lower tensioner or that lower idler, the stud doesn't need to be replaced because it's not torque to yield, but the top one for the tensioner is. So I'm just going to replace the top one because that's all I've got. Okay, I just thought I'd include this quick right here. So if you got to take out this stud here, normally some alligator pliers will grab it, but this one seems stuck in, so you can double nut it. So basically, well, they use flange nuts. So if you put the one on backwards, one on normal, and then jam the two together, and then throw a wrench on this inside one, and it should kind of mess the threads up here first, but let's tighten this up. Uh-oh, that didn't go as planned, so I think I took the threads out of the nut there. Okay, so it was actually the jam nut that had stripped, not my inner one, so I got another one on there from a previous timing belt kit. That's why I like keeping all the spare stuff. I just throw it in a little container of used stretch bolts for little projects and stuff like this, but grab onto the inside one. Is it moving now? It is. So we'll just walk it out like that. And then you can reinstall the new one. If it goes in tight, you can kind of do the same thing. Double nut it, bring it in, and then loosen the nuts off and take the nuts off. Okay, so we have all our new components sitting in here. So the water pump is torqued and turned. Everything else is just in here snug. So the plan is we're gonna get this actuator sitting in there again, because even though it's just a blind hole, that needs to stay plugged in. So we'll set that in, tighten it down, and then we will get the belt put in here, and then we'll tension it up. So one thing, so since this is a torque and turn nut, the plan is we're gonna do the torque, and then we're gonna rotate over twice. If everything is spot on, tension's good, all that, then we'll do the turn after the fact, but we'll worry about that once the belt's on. So get that all together and pick up from there. Okay, so the belt's on nice and easy. So I kind of cheated a little bit. I took this top idler back off, gave it a little more slack. So the main goal is you want front fairly snug, and you want most of the play on the back side so the tensioner can take it up. Overall, it's not a huge deal. The main thing is you need to make sure you've got room on these idlers, or on these pulleys, so that they can rotate as you tension. So same thing there. So I'm just to the back side of the window on the cam there. And this one, you gotta make sure, it wouldn't probably be a terrible idea if you put a little white marker, like mark it there, and that way you know kind of roughly where you are in its travel, because you don't want it bottoming out. It's not a big deal if it's not in the center, you just don't want it bottomed out. So we've got the Allen bit on there. So this nut, you need to make sure it's tight enough that the back of the spring is held into the housing, but not too tight that you can't turn it. And then just rotate it forwards until the pointer is in the window. So then once it's there, you just grab your wrench, tighten it back down, and then we'll go over and we'll do the initial torque on everything. Take all the pins out, rotate it over twice, and then we'll repin it here. Okay, so 15 foot-pounds, 15 foot-pounds, 15 foot-pounds. We're not doing a torque turn all night yet, as I said. Water pump was already torqued a while ago. So then these two here, so that's 100 Newton meters, and this is supposed to be 95 Newton meters, which that's, I think, 74 foot-pounds, and I haven't converted that yet. But for just simplicity's sakes, for rotating the engine over, all I did was use the counter hold. Just gave her a couple little ugga-duggas, made it snug. So we're gonna pull these guys out of here. That one's a little bit more tighter. I'll maybe just bump around just a little bit. We'll get both of these pins out, and then we'll get that bottom crank lock off, do the full 2 turns, and then see how everything's sitting. Okay, so we got the 2 revolutions down. The crank is locked again. So now if we take a look, pump's pretty well spot on. Cam gear is pretty well spot on. But the tensioner loosened off a little bit. So the nice part about not torque to yielding that bolt is I can just loosen that off, tension it up just a hair more yet, then we're set. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna get that tensioner set and then take the crank lock out, and then I'm gonna do the 100 Newton meters and 95 Newton meters on those pulleys with the counter hold tool, and then should be set for reassembly. Okay, so we've got everything torqued here now. I've done this one too with the big torque wrench. So I just wanted to double check, or just say it again if I haven't already said it, was make sure you've got your crank lock off before you go and torque that. It doesn't take much of a bump to, especially with once you get some extensions on there, to kind of bump it one way or the other. Really don't want to break that front plastic housing. So that was already snug before we did the 2 revolutions, so it's just doing the final little torque spec with the torque wrench. So everything's good now, so we're gonna start reassembly. I don't think there's anything too spectacular. Start putting it together. If there's anything weird or something, I'll take a video of it, I guess. Okay, I didn't really make it very far, but mount on. We got 2 different bolts. So short, short, long. Short, short, long. So you'll notice if you grab a short one and you put it in there, they'll barely poke through, whereas that's what we're after. So make sure you get the right bolts in the right spots. Okay, so if you get overly excited and get your mount all installed and you don't pop your bottom plastic cover in, it's not gonna fit with the tensioner installed. So get everything fed in before you tighten everything down, or just pop the tensioner off. It's just 2 quick and easy bolts. So I'm gonna pop that back in there now. We're gonna get the serpentine belt on and keep going together. And just like that, we're back together. So as far as what I would do different, there's not too much other than this DPF and EGR differential sensors. I would unbolt them down there, right, come on, down there, right from the get-go. Unplug them, get them out of the way. It's like a lot easier in there. But other than that, I think I would do everything the same way again if I had to do it again. Last up, so it does have a check engine light, so I want to scan that, but I'm also going to prime the fuel filter because I had that open. The other thing is going to be coolant. So I've got a vacuum filler that I use on farm equipment. I'm going to use it in this case as well. We've got a sea of hoses here of coolant and stuff. And then we got the air to water intercooler here as well, which I guess it's a little bit lower than the reservoir, but vacuum filling it's quick and easy. You know you're good to go. If you don't have a vacuum filler, I would fill it right, this ball right full. Go park it out in your driveway, get it up to the temperature with the cap off. Then you should be able to tell when thermostat opens and stuff starts pumping where it's supposed to be. It should drop down. So as far as how much I got out, it's a good time to be changing it, so I tried to get out as much as I could. This jug was empty. Now she's right to the brim, so when you go to refill it, it should be a full jug of coolant. Okay, so quick and easy, use shop air, run across the venturi, and put the cooling system into a vacuum. So I go like that. That should hold vacuum. It's really nice too if you've got a bad habit of leaving the drain plug loose or the hose off or something like that. If you've got a leak, you should see that starting to come back to zero, but seems pretty good there right now. So shut that off, pop that out of there, and then you grab the filling attachment. Okay, so filling attachment's on. You just plop her into your pail, open that up, and then it keeps sucking her down. So you gotta make sure that the strainer's still in coolant, but looks pretty awesome. Kind of like that. So I'm gonna put this camera down and actually do some work here. That's like 30 seconds and the whole jug's gone. So with the vacuum, it shouldn't have any air bubbles. Canister's still empty. It's got some of those add-on things too. I'll maybe try and fish them out yet too. And then yeah, I'll fill it up a little bit more, but I gotta pre-mix some more coolant here yet. Okay, so coolant filled it up a little bit higher. Should be set. So now we'll do the fuel. So I've got BCDS on. And then if you go to engine output tests, I don't know why my flash is on here. Engine output tests, fuel pump electronics. You can hear it up here too. So let it run for a little bit and then we'll stir it up here. So anyway, the fuel bled out, coolant bled pretty good. So now we'll get the tires, fender well, the underskirting on, take it out for a drive, make sure everything's good. And then she'll be ready for another 120 or 130,000 miles. So I'm gonna end this here. Thanks for watching and hopefully this video helped.